and welcome to episode 97 of FMOE here on Shaun Does FM with Arsenal. I hope you are doing well, and coming up today we get ready for our second season here at the club, looking to win the Champions League and I suppose also the big prize of the Community Shield after picking up a domestic treble last season. And to get ready for that, we are going to get stuck into a transfer special today, so if you are looking forward to it, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and have been enjoying this series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated, but we haven't gone too far off the back of where we did leave things at the end of last week, the end of season review, the awards, and that last game of the season that we did show you guys in the FA Cup final. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. We've just gone forward a little bit so that we can show you guys our plans that we're going to hopefully try and accomplish during this upcoming transfer window. Of course, the big addition already secured Kylian Mbappe joining the club on a free transfer, which we did get done back in January. But if we go over and have a look at the squad for this upcoming season and go over and have a look at the reports instead of the contracts for now, because there's a little bit of an issue with that, which we'll get to shortly. Go over and have a look at the players and their ability. Most of the players here are good enough for Arsenal, but if you have just dropped down over the course of the season, I'll actually get my head cam out of the way for this one so you can see the players that I'm talking about. But two players down to 2.5 star potential and ability in Bella and Ugarte. Ugarte was actually quite decent for us last season, but might be time for us to move him on at 29 years old with no room for growth. And also Bella did cause a few dynamic issues for us last season when we did not register him for the Champions League, so it might be a good idea to also let go of him. So I think those are two players who we are going to transfer list. And for those two, if we're going to look at their values, Bella we'll bring the face cam back for this part. He is valued around £40 million. We could get a decent amount of money for him. And also Ugarte, he is valued at £36 million, give or take. So we could get some decent money from those two if we sell them. And if we add that to our current transfer budget, that should get us potentially up towards £140 million already at the £95 million mark, with a lot of wage budget there, albeit a lot of that is going to get taken up when Kylian Mbappe does join us at the start of July. But Ugarte and Bella definitely players we are going to try and get rid of in this upcoming transfer window. And from there, I think we'll see in terms of the squad going into this new season, we'll go over to the squad plan. A goalkeeper, quite happy with that. Right back, I think, is an area that we could improve. We've got Tomiyasu, Singo and Grass, the only one there with some potential, even then not the greatest amount, 4-star gold. Ideally, I will sign Lamine Kasi from Bayern Munich. He is a very promising right back, so you might get into that soon. At centre back, quite happy with our options, Saliba, Kamara and Yakubu as ball playing defenders. And on the other side, Bamba is the starter, and Kamara and Yakubu can also cover that area without the likes of Bella as an option. Left back, another area that does look just a little bit weak, but to be fair, not as worried about bringing in a player in this area, because Bojan Vaskovic, if we need to, we can give him some game time, and he does have quite a bit of potential and can hopefully start to fulfill that a little bit if we do give him some regular game time in the first team. If we do get some spare money, that might be the other area that we do look to improve the defensive midfield. We've got Coop Miners. Ideally, we could bring in Khalid Al-Bloshi potentially from Cardiff, and that would help us with that last homegrown spot that we were missing in the Champions League from last season to replace Ugarte. Also the likes there of Sambi Lokonga, albeit to be fair, might be a player we do look to get rid of potentially if we can drum up some interest in him. Also, Patino can cover the midfield, as can Kamara. On the deep-lying playmaker side, we've got Pere, Patino, and Sambi Lokonga and Kamara, but similar situation. Kamara is a very versatile bench option for us, but Sambi Lokonga is still a player. Not too sure why he joined Arsenal during the summer of last season. Hopefully, we might be able to drum up some interest in him as I see and get even more money in that transfer budget. Outright pretty happy with this. We've got Saka and Carvalho as his backup. Jan Puluk, though, not as much potential as I thought he had, and is not a homegrown player, so another player that maybe we may look to move on for this upcoming season, especially because he will no longer be able to be unregistered under the age of 21 years old. In terms of the central attacking midfield, Odegaard, Vera and Sterling, very happy with that trio. Of course, we need to keep Sterling because he is homegrown club. Out left, Martinelli and Trincao. Again, very happy with how those two performed, especially Trincao, our player of the season from last year. And up front, we'll get Mbappe. We've still got Jesus, Barea, and Florenzano, as well as Martinelli, who can go there if needed. We might have to loan out someone like Florenzano because we might end up with too many options with Barea and Florenzano going over the age of 21. So that means that we'll have to register those players unlike last season. So maybe Florenzano is the one who does get loaned out. Also, Jesus is about to start a one-year contract, so we might not be able to move him on, but is probably the player, if we're going to sell someone up front, that we are going to look to get rid of. I can't imagine he'll be too happy sitting in behind Kylian Mbappe for too long, but we're definitely going to have to get rid of one of those strikers, either for a sale or through a loan. But I think the big areas that we want to improve, obviously the big addition already, as you can see there, of Mbappe, which will help us up front. But right back, looking for Kasi from Bayern Munich, and out left, not too sure yet. Depends if we can raise some funds through some sales of some spare parts from other areas, and also some of the players in the squad. I've sort of mentioned them before, some of the older ones. If we do get some bids that come in for them, which are quite good for some of these older guys, once we get this the right way around, as you can see, the likes of Jesus, Tenny, maybe not those next three, but the likes of Tomiyasu as well, those players who are getting on and also don't have the greatest amount of potential or current ability, they might also be players that we do look to sell in this transfer window to raise those extra funds to try and strengthen alongside probably our first target, which is going to be a right back. And seeing as we do already have the money in the bank to put a bid in for Kasi, because his release clause is 85 million, we might try and do that to start off with, but you're going to see an issue here, which we do have to deal with for this upcoming transfer window, because if we ask him or his agent about availability, very keen on signing him, you will see there, fully focused on the FIFA World Cup, won't discuss his future until afterwards. I know for a fact usually this guy is quite interested in joining us here at Arsenal, but we are going to have to play the patient game here a little bit, because there is some funny stuff that's going to happen for the next month or so while the World Cup is taking place. So unfortunately, we're going to have to just hold our funds there for Lamine Kasi for now, but maybe we can still get rid of some other players and maybe just raise enough funds to try and strengthen the squad in other areas. But that is something that we do need to keep in mind. Also the case with some players on our squad whose contracts we do need to renew, the likes of Aaron Ramsdale and Martin Odegaard, who we definitely want to keep at the club. So it's going to be a little bit interesting, this one, in and around the FIFA World Cup. Will be interesting to see who does win that. And also, while we are here and on the subject of Lamine Kasi, a quick update on who did win the Champions League final from last season, because we didn't quite get that far by the time that we did wrap things up off the back of our last game in the Premier League, as well as the end of season review. The Champions League final was won by his club for the second season in a row, and that is Bayern Munich 2-1 after extra time. So hopefully we can dethrone those guys, and I think that would just about complete the save, seeing as we have already won the domestic treble here in England. But we'll see how things play out over the course of today's episode, see if we get any bids coming in for those players who we have transfer listed in Ugarte and Bala Kotchap. And as I said, might need to be a little bit patient before we do sign some players with that World Cup taking place. We'll come back as stuff happens over the course of this episode. And about 10 days off the back of where we did start things in today's episode, we have made our first sale of one of those players who was transfer listed, our backup defensive midfielder in behind Coop Miners in Manuel Ugarte. He has gone to Wolves, also in the Premier League, for a fee of £35 million. We're a little bit short of what we ideally would have got for him, but his current ability and potential was at 2.5 stars. So probably an area that we definitely could have improved going into this upcoming season. Still not a bad bit of business, because they did sign him from PSG the year before last for 23 million. So not bad work there from us. They do make a profit of 12 million pounds, but it does mean it tops up our transfer budget, and now it is up towards 130 million pounds. That does mean though, we do need a replacement for him, and you saw the squad planner before. Don't feel quite so bad about it this season compared to last season, especially because now these guys are down in the championship. But Khalid El-Bloshy, we have put a bid in for him of £68 million. Not all of that is up front. It's a little bit cheaper than his continental release clause of £80 million, but hopefully that does get accepted by Cardiff, seeing as they are in the championship. He was a good option. Is actually a little bit better than Ugarte in that DM role, and as we know from our days at Cardiff, can also do a decent job as a deep-lying playmaker and can also go as an attacking midfielder if needed, so can be quite versatile for us, and also homegrown nation as well, so we'll fill the last of those spots which we didn't quite have for the Champions League last season. But with that sale of Ugarte, our first move is going to be trying to pick up a familiar face in Khalid El-Bloshy. And some good news is Cardiff have accepted that bid for Khalid El-Bloshy. It does include a friendly which will be arranged between the two clubs at some stage before the start of the season, if I remember, or even then we might squeeze one in during the course of the season if there is a break for internationals, but we are going to sign him overall for £68 million. It won't quite be that much up front. He does still have to accept the contract, but it does look like one which should be going through, so hopefully we get rejoined there with a familiar face from Cardiff and Khalid El-Bloshy to replace Manuel Ugarte. And going forward to the latter stages of June now, we are about to make our first signing for this window. You've seen it over the last few updates. It will be Khalid El-Bloshy, but before then, a bid has been put in for our Mal Balakotchap from Manchester United, £30 million. It is matching his value, to be fair. What we did ask most recently, no one wanted to come in around that £35-36 million mark. I don't know if we're going to do too much better than this, and to be fair, Manchester United, he's not that good a player for them, so I'm not too worried about letting him go to one of our rivals, if you can call them that, after they were only mid-table last season. So I think we'll accept that offer, and Mal Balakotchap might be on his way to Old Trafford. But the big reason for this update, Khalid El-Bloshy is rejoining up with us here at Arsenal. Of course, we did manage him at Cardiff City for a couple of years, 1 year in the Championship and those last 2 in the Premier League. He will join us and be the backup to Coop Miners in that DM role. Good player, a fair bit of potential, and quite importantly, homegrown nation. There's our first signing of the window, Khalid El-Bloshy to Arsenal. And we've made our way forward to the start of July. Things going a bit slowly in terms of signing players, especially now as we have bought El-Bloshy. Don't have quite enough money while we wait for that Balakotchap sale to go through to go after Cussie, but even then do need to wait until after the World Cup. But it is the start of July, and it does mean, as you can see on screen, Kylian Mbappe has joined us on a free transfer for no pounds, albeit we are paying him nearly £500,000 a week. To be fair though, he was on £1 million a week when he was at PSG, so he has taken a very decent pay cut to come here to the Emirates. Such a good player, is going to be a game changer for us up front, and hopefully can spur us on to Champions League glory. But there he is in all his glory, Kylian Mbappe now officially an Arsenal player. And only a few clicks off the back of Mbappe officially joining us here at Arsenal, there you can see apparently it's going to make a big difference to our revenue from shirt sales, which is good to see. Hopefully that gets more brownie points with the backroom staff, so we do keep our job for longer. Hopefully we would anyway, off the back of what we did do last season, expected to be a high shirt seller, as you would expect, albeit Bukayo Saka expected to remain number 1, which is a little bit interesting considering Mbappe, such a high profile signing. But Balakotchap is going to be on his way out, so thankfully it does mean now we will have enough money if we can get a deal done for the mean Cussie off the back of the World Cup. But he is going to Manchester United for £30 million. It is a bit of a loss from when they did sign this guy from RB Leipzig 2 seasons ago, but never really got much game time for them, and last season did cause us a few headaches dynamics-wise when we could not register him for the Champions League. So Balakotchap, we lose £14 million on him, but still some extra money to go towards the transfer budget. He is on his way to Old Trafford. And we've gone for nearly 2 weeks off the back of the arrival of Mbappe, as well, of course, as getting rid of Balakotchap. We have actually sold 2 players here who were away from the club last season on loan. We're signing them because not as much potential as I was expecting them to have once they did come back to the club. But we're showing you guys this because we are getting decent transfer fees for both of them. First up, Alberto Zhu. He is off to Celtic for £15.5 million. Good deal this from the club because we only signed him last season. I say we, it was actually before we got to the club, so it must have been back when Sergio was in charge for £3.5 million. We make £12 million from that deal, And also Bayron Cecil, he is about to leave for Anderlecht for just under £15 million, but it does mean with both of those transfers, we get £30 million for those that we can spend on a good first team player, hopefully, and maybe improve in an area like left back. But there is Bayron Cecil, only 3-star potential, 2-star current. Arsenal signed him back in 2027-28 from Colo Colo in Chile for 2.9 million. So again, a very good profit from that transfer, but we get for those two deals around £30 million. So as I said, maybe we're starting to build up a bit of a kitty here to also improve left back as well as right back. And only a few days off the back of those sales of a few youngsters for around about £30 million, finally the World Cup has been wrapped up. Germany bet France in the final. That is, of course, the team of our transfer target in Lamine Kassi. Unfortunately, though, also it does mean that Boubacar Kamara does not pick up a World Cup, one of our current players here at Arsenal. But finally, because the World Cup is over, we were able to start to do a bit more work in terms of contracts and trying to sign some players who were busy focusing on that tournament. And it turns out that Lamine Kassi, after all, was interested in a move here. We have triggered his release clause of £85 million, as you can see, paying him a fairly decent wage, quite a few bonuses, but he is an exceptional right back and only 22 years old, so it does actually fit in with one of the club's objectives in signing players under the age of 23. Also really nice to get a player off a team who has won the Champions League twice in a row. We play that wing back on attack on that right hand side. Apart from clearing off the ball, he will be exceptional with those attributes in that position. So hopefully, with no one else interested in him by the looks of it, which is a bit surprising, because I dare say once he comes to Arsenal, that value will be a lot more than that release clause. But it does look like after a little bit of waiting for that World Cup to finish, Lamine Kassi might be our big money signing for this transfer window to really strengthen that right back area. And while we do wait for Lamine Kassi to accept that contract that we did offer him, we have sold one more player here at Arsenal a few days off the back of that. Benjamin White, who was on loan at Porto last season. We were hoping they would take up an optional future fee. They did not, but when he did return to the club, we have offered him back out, and he has gone to Middlesbrough now in the Championship for £9 million. Not a lot of money, but still quite useful for a player who just wasn't up to the level needed here at Arsenal. 2.5-star current ability and potentially was homegrown nation. But at 32 years old, it did feel like a good idea to get rid of him. We were trying to do it last season when we came to the club. So Ben White is on his way. He is now at Middlesbrough, sold for £9 million. Of course, that is quite a loss considering Arsenal did sign him for £50 million back in 2021-22, but that is a good period of life that they did get out of him. He is now off our books and out the door to Middlesbrough in the Championship. And it took nearly a week for him to accept the contract, but thankfully Lamine Kassi is going to be our big signing for this season here at Arsenal, at least for now, for £85 million, which was his release clause. You saw him before, an exceptional right back, big improvement on what we do have there in the likes of Tomiyasu, as well as Wilfred Singo and Yanni Grass. He will be our starter for the upcoming seasons, only 22 years old, so really good signing. And as you can see already, that value a fair bit higher than what we paid for him. So Lamine Kassi, a big signing here at Arsenal for this upcoming season. It does now mean left back really our only area of weakness, and even still, when you have someone like Vaskovic with that quite high potential, we might be able to get away with just not doing a deal for that, but we'll see who else we can sign before we do get into the Community Shield, which will be the first game that we do show you guys in tomorrow's episode. Also, another signing that is expected to boost shirt sales, albeit not quite as much as Kylian Mbappe, but that is a brilliant transfer, I think. Very good right back, 22 years old. A pretty decent deal there, I think. I know it's 85 million, but he does look like he will be worth a lot more than that. Lamine Kassi, a newcomer to the Emirates. And a few days off the back of Lamine Kassi signing, we have got rid of a young right winger here at Arsenal in Jan Pulak. As we said earlier, not quite as much potential as we were hoping, and also compared to some of the other players who were out on loan from the club last season, not homegrown, so there's not much reason to keep this guy around. He has gone to Burnley for £26.5 million, also a little bit off percentage of next sale there of 20%, but he has gone to Burnley. Arsenal signed him the year before we came here for £7.5 million, paid a little bit for them, but a really good profit there going down to the Championship. Jan Pullock out the door, and that does add even more money to our transfer budget. Still a fair bit in there. If we go over and have a look, it is now up to 56 million, give or take, off the back of that signing of Lamine Kassi. Also thought we might be getting rid of Kieran Tierney, whose contract does expire at the end of this season, and with his current ability and potential at 33 years old, ideally we get rid of him in this transfer window, but unfortunately he's rejected an offer from Chelsea, so we'll see if we can get rid of him before the start of the transfer window. If we do sell him, that should really give us an opportunity to try and sign a very good left back and make sure that there's no real weaknesses in our starting 11 for this upcoming season. But for now, Kieran Tierney is staying, but Jan Pullock has gone to Burnley. And not too long off the back of that sale of Jan Pullock, now we have sold another player, but this time it is the player who I was always wondering last season why Arsenal bothered to sign him. It is Albert Sambi-Lokonga. We have made a decent loss on this deal, obviously, but it's not my fault because they paid way too much than they should have for him last season. They should have just signed Khalid El-Bloshy to fill a homegrown spot, but Albert Sambi-Lokonga out the door. He has gone to Inter Milan for £36.5 million the second time that Arsenal have now sold him, but as I said, just not really sure why Sergio Conceição signed him last season anyway, because he was always going to be a little bit worse than some of the other players that they could have gotten. Also wasn't even homegrown in nation, despite the fact he did spend a spell here between 2021 and 2024. They have made a fair bit of a loss off that if you consider how much they paid for him way back when, and also how much they paid for him at the start of last season, but just quite happy to get rid of him. He was taking up a fair bit of wage budget as well, and even more money now to bump up that transfer budget we do have now. It is around about the £90 million mark for Albert Sambi-Lokonga. He is no longer an Arsenal player these days like Romelu Lukaku loves Inter Milan. And we are now in late July. A quick update on how things are going in our pre-season for this upcoming one. We have just gone on a tour to the Netherlands. Thankfully, picked up fairly comfortable wins in all those games, including a 4-0 one over PSV. As you can see, Kylian Mbappe well and truly amongst the goals. A bit surprising to see he's retired from international football at this stage of the save. But we did have a fair bit of money that was in our transfer budget off the back of all those sales that we have made off the back of signing Lamine Kassi. We are now up to £96 million and £465,000 in the wage budget off the back of some contracts being renewed, and of course Kylian Mbappe joining, which was the big concern with his quite large wage. It did mean I thought we may as well go big, considering the goal for this season is going to be to try and win the Champions League. So I have gone after a world-class left back to go alongside Lamine Kassi out on the other side, and it should be a player he is quite familiar with from Bayern Munich. We are trying to sign Alejandro Balde. Is a bit older, and 26 years old, is the Spaniard formerly of Barcelona, but the same current ability, the same potential, also as a wing-back, very similar to Kassi on that left-hand side. We do play a wing-back on support. To be fair, he might even be a slightly better player than Lamine Kassi, but as I said, you'd kind of expect that, being a little bit older. The Bayern Munich players, we scouted them early last season when we took these guys on in the Champions League. They had some really good looking ones in that left back area and right back area, were the two positions where they did have quite a big advantage over us based on the attributes in these players they did have in their squad. We're going to try and counter that this season by taking their players off them, and we have bid £90 million for Alejandro Balde. It was his release clause. Hopefully he will join us, and that should make us a very, very strong, almost super squad going in to this upcoming season. But Alejandro Balde, we have just put in a contract for him. Hopefully he will accept that, and I think that will almost just about do it, considering there will be most of our transfer budget used on the left back. And going forward 5 days off the back of that bid and contract offer to Alejandro Balde, he has accepted it. So yet again, we have pinched a wing-back off of the European champions, the back-to-back European champions in Bayern Munich, and Alejandro Balde, officially an Arsenal player, another player whose value has gone up once we did sign him, albeit not quite as much as Lamine Cassie, as you would expect with that age difference. But as you saw before, he is going to be a very good wing back, can also play out on the right-hand side and all the way down as well. We can actually play him as an attacking player as well as at wing back if we do need to. But he is a very good signing, and that should mean for this upcoming season, we will have one heck of a team and might take some stopping in quite a few competitions. But as I said, the main aim for this upcoming season is the Champions League. Obviously, going to need to do a decent job in the domestic competitions as well to keep our job can't slip up in the Premier League. But still, we should be a really good chance now in the Champions League with the additions of Mbappe, Cassie, and now Alejandro Balde. And we've gone forward a week and a half and we are up to the pre-season, the big pre-season game, and our chance here to win a Community Shield as we are taking on Liverpool from Wembley, a team who we did actually struggle against last season, but thankfully in the league they did slip up quite a bit late, which did allow us to win that title and also, of course, the treble when we did pick up the cups. We did not have to play those guys. But this is where we're going to leave things for today. But just a quick update before we do round things up, as there is some stuff going on in the background that we are still going to try and sort out over the course of August in the next couple of episodes. And that does relate to the fact that we still can't register all our players for the Premier League this season. That is because some of those players that we did sign last season around the age of 21 then can no longer be unregistered players and get played in the Premier League. So it does mean there are some players currently not registered for the squad, and those players are for now our young wing backs in Vaskovic and Yannier Grass, because I do think they won't get that much game time here this season off the back of signing Cassie and Balde. So it does mean for now we have offered them out to go on loan to some pretty decent European clubs. But if we go over and have a look at the contract situation here at Arsenal, you will see, once we get it in the right order, there are some players here whose contracts are about to expire and we're not going to renew them because I don't think they actually have the potential to be worth it. Those players, Gabriel Jesus, Takahiro Tomiyasu, and Kieran Tierney, Fabio Vieira, we are going to wait on for a little bit and just see if a bid does come in for him, because there is a player out there worth around £20 million who is better for that attacking midfield role than he is. So if we can sell Vieira for around that £95 million mark to a team like Barcelona, that would be a very profitable bit of business. But we have transfer listed Kieran Tierney, Tomiyasu, and Gabriel Jesus. If we can get rid of some of those players, it does mean some of the ones that we aren't currently registering, like Florenzano up front, Yannier Grass at right back, and Vaskovic at left back, we can just replace these guys who are going to be leaving the club if we can sell them with those players. So it does mean for now, despite the fact they are underbid some of those young players, we are just going to hold off and see if we can drum up some interest in some of these guys whose contracts are expiring at the end of this season, and hopefully not have any Alexander Zinchenko issues coming up in January. But there is a bid for one of these players, and it is Takahiro Tomiyasu. He is quite keen on a move to Bournemouth, and two offers have come in for him, and that is from Ajax and from Bournemouth. And to be fair, that Bournemouth offer a lot better than the Ajax one, so hopefully he does take that. We won't get a great deal of money up front, but overall £24.5 million, and it does just make things easier on us going into this upcoming season. It does mean that Grass can stay at the club and that we probably get a bit more money than we would have got otherwise if we would have sold him in January, or of course let him go on a free transfer come the end of the season. We'll see what does happen with the likes of Jesus, who to be fair did sign a new contract going into this season, so he might be a player we are going to have to wait until January to potentially get rid of, and also Kieran Tierney, who unfortunately turned down that Chelsea offer earlier in the window. Looks like there's not a lot of interest in the 33-year-old Scotsman, but those are players who will probably not get a contract renewed here at Arsenal. So if we can sell them in the remainder of this transfer window, that is probably the best thing financially for the club. But it does mean our squad going into this upcoming season could just change a little bit depending on who we do get rid of over the course of the rest of August. But I think that about does things for today for this transfer window. Before we do get into the gameplay action in tomorrow's episode, we will show you guys the Community Shield against Liverpool in our opening game of the Premier League, where hopefully we can defend that and hopefully actually get a trophy presentation that we see this time. And it is a tricky opening game too against Manchester United from Old Trafford, albeit they were a bit average last year, so hopefully that might be a winnable game for us, albeit these days they are now managed by Antonio Conte. But if you enjoyed today's transfer episode, really strengthening up that squad with the likes of Balde, with Kissy, and of course with Kylian Mbappe, here's a quick look at what our first choice 11 does look like going into this upcoming season, apart from the fact that Aaron Ramsdale does currently have a bit of an injury, which will probably keep him out of that Community Shield in tomorrow's episode. But if you put him back in that lineup, it is a seriously good first choice 11, and hopefully one that can take us to glory in most competitions this season, most importantly though, the Champions League. But if you enjoyed that transfer window, really strengthening up this Arsenal squad, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well until tomorrow, as I said, for the Community Shield against Liverpool and that Premier League season opener against Manchester United. Thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.